to me like bong live. You're live. You're live. You live. You live. Can you hear us through this microphone? Hey, so you know what? You can see on the little avatar, the GIF sort of thing for this show, my hair is suitably messed up for you. I have some notes because we did not do the episode from last week, and that was the show that I can hear you. I can hear you. All right. What I'm trying to figure out is because, the controls on YouTube, I wanted to find out if it's, can you hear that? Is it going through there or through the computer? I want it to go through this microphone. But last week we were going to do the show and it was July 12th. And I have some notes from there because July 12th was National Simplicity Day, because it was Henry David Thoreau's birthday. And, Max and I have been talking about this, about self-reliance, as this about a new transcendentalism, right? All right, a new transcendent, they say it's coming through this mic. Anyway, so, Henry David Thoreau is all about self-reliance, as were all of the other transcendentalists. Two of the quotes I like from him: what you get by achieving your goals is not as important as what you become by achieving your goals. Life isn't about finding yourself, it's about creating yourself. So live the life you imagined. But apparently, had we done that show last week, and I would have maybe called it self-reliance, this week, that's considered white supremacy to be self-reliant. It's actually listed as aspects and assumptions of white culture. That to self-reliance is listed right there. A symbol of white, a sign of white culture, white supremacy is rugged individualism. So I was pretty surprised by that. It seems almost like some sort of gaslighting that's going on, a mass gaslighting incident. Hello, this is Max Keiser.
Oh yeah, that's interesting because I'm white. I'm a white man, right? So I am the subject of the derision, of all this derision. I am ground zero. I am the focal point of all of the angst and discomfort that's being felt. So if anyone wants to know anything about this, ask me, because I am the white man. I am the white man from Wall Street who grew up in the Westchester County. So I tick all the boxes. I am the most privileged person you will ever see is me. There's never been anyone more privileged that you will ever see than me. Sure. So I offer my services to you as an oracle of whiteness. Do you want to know what it's like to be white? Do you want to know what it's like to be privileged? Do you want to know what it's like to be a Wall Street guy? Do you want to know? And any of these answers I can tell you because I am that man. I am that guy.
Yeah, and you even he called his sandwiches growing up. Some people call them heroes. Where I grew up in Connecticut, they call them, what do we call them? Grinders.
Grinders.
And that's nobody's for sure where it came from, but they believe it came from the Italian immigrants working in the naval shipyards in New London and Groton, Connecticut. So, we called it grinders, but people from Westchester County called it wedges, which sounds a little bit...
Not everybody in Westchester, but specifically in Larchmont.
Yes.
And a few other areas, we called them wedges. That's a wedge, like a meatball wedge. We would never call it a meatball grinder, a hero, or a Subway. No, it's a wedge. That's what we call them. That's, what I understand it to be. That's what it is. That's part of being white privilege, is to call these sandwiches wedges. I can do that because I grew up in Larchmont, and if you do a search online and say, where does the term wedge come from for a sandwich, you'll find that it's very narrow geographic location in America that includes Larchmont, New York, my hometown, And that's part of my white privilege. So I'm here to help you understand yourself. You have problems because you don't accept me. So if you understand me better, you will have less problems. I'm here to help.
Right. That's right. Not only did I say grinder, of course, what I mean when I say that is that what some people know as a Subway or Hero or what other names do you have out there? There are other names. Hi, Stacey. Hi, Max. Everything related to white culture is under attack. Hoagie, yes. Po' boy down south.
Down south is po' boy, but that's maybe a little different. But
a little bit different.
Yeah, it's in the same kind of
oyster po' boy.
Yeah, it's under the same epistemological. No, it's under the same rubric. No, the same subset, the same paragraph, the same genealogical subset of a sandwich historically in the epistemological sense. The big controversy people have is whether a hot dog is a sandwich.
No, it's not a sandwich.
Even that famous scientist weighed in on this.
This is really interesting. Like this whole, what famous scientist?
The guy who remade Cosmos.
Remade it.
He made the updated version.
Oh yeah. From Carl Sagan, and then it was he got in some trouble recently. It was Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Yeah, he said that a hot dog is definitely a sandwich.
No, it's not.
Maybe
in a parallel dimension or another galaxy. Maybe it is. Maybe.
Well, apparently the definition is that if it's a meat between two slices of bread, it's a sandwich, and therefore a hot dog qualifies as a sandwich. But where it gets gray is your description of a filling. They'll say it's a filling with two slices of bread around a filling. So some people in the it's not a sandwich camp claim that the meat is not really a filling as such. Like if you had an egg salad, would clearly is a filling, or a chicken salad, or a tuna salad, or a bacon, lettuce, and tomato. Those are fillings. That would be a sandwich. But a wiener or a knockwurst or a bratwurst, that doesn't seem like a filling to me. It's more like just straight up meat. It's a meat. It's a hot dog, damn it. A hot dog is one thing and a sandwich is another thing.
Exactly. Like, would you call a croque madame a sandwich?
Yes, definitely.
No, oh, well, of course, the French waiter would get very angry with you if you asked for a sandwich. Yeah, a croque madame. They would be like,
non, c'est pas vrai. Il y a dans carte français, en particulier, qui les sélections des sandwichs, et dedans, c'est voilà, un croque madame, croque monsieur, etc., etc. Those are sandwiches.
So our friend Declan Byrne out there from Stab City says they call it Stab City sliced pan.
What?
In Limerick.
What? What kind of insanity? What?
Sliced pan.
Sliced pan. That's like a
pan. Like a pan.
It's like a serial killer is slicing up women. The slicing up Pam. And that's what you call a sandwich. It's in Stab City. It's a violent place. Never go to Limerick ever. It's too violent.
Not Pam with an M, but Pan with an N, like Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh, so like Pan, like in Shakespeare. They had that little tricksy fairy goddess, Pan. The god of Pan, goddess of Pan.
And is this true? Some guy named Martin Kelly says in the working class British, call it a piece.
That's because they only have like 6 words in their vocabulary. So everything is a piece.
Yeah, right. Shakespeare made up his words, and the working class have copy language.
Hundreds of years ago, when the English were, had some education. Today, it's just like, peace, 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 peace. Give me a piece, peace, peace. That's all they got. It's a very limited vocabulary.
Well, don't use that word like in the hood, in the sort of projects in America. A piece means like you've got your
you're strapping.
You got your gun.
You're holding.
Yeah, you're packing.
Packing. Right.
Well, but anyway, we made an entire episode of Kaiser Report called Self-reliance recently.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
And now that's considered white supremacy.
Because why not? I mean, why not? But nobody. Everyone decries white supremacy. They don't like white people, but what are they gonna do about it?
Well, it's just too much. It's like it's a it's a minefield out there, especially places like Twitter, because it, like we discussed recently, that the Matrix all of a sudden being red pilled is alt, right? It's like neo-Nazi or misogynist. I'm not sure. It's because incels, who are this new weird group of people that nobody pays attention to but themselves, and some journalists, some left-wing journalists pay attention to them, and then like tell us out here in the rest of the world, you know, where the majority of people live.
Yeah.
There is this secret group of incels, and they use the word red pilled. So if you use it, you're a nutcase like them too.
I got a solution for that.
What is it?
The way to handle the incels so that they're content is you mix the incels with the fappers.
Who are the fappers?
They're addicted to masturbation.
Oh, Jesus.
Right? So the fappers that are addicted to masturbation, you mix them up with the incels that consider themselves to be undersexed. And you put those two together, and they would cancel each other out, and everyone would be happy.
Somebody says red pill has nothing to do with incels. Yes, it does. That's what they named their subreddit. So because they named their subreddit red pilled, I don't even get that. So I don't know. I haven't been there, but you know, incel, well, to be red pilled is to obviously get rid of all your delusions and understand the truth. So what are
I'll be right back.
Okay.
Continue.
Max is he's looking for his Shakespeare. Well, Shakespeare was a pretty brilliant guy.
Look, here's the complete works of Shakespeare, okay? Look, this guy wrote a lot. Look at all this stuff Shakespeare wrote. This is the complete works. The plays, the sonnets, everything. And I've gone through this with a fine-tooth comb and read every word 3 times in English, Spanish, German, and Japanese. And I can tell you, nowhere does he refer to red pill as meaning anything to do but in relation to the Matrix movie. So that's the definitive answer right there.
Well, you know, he did invent a lot of words, but I reckon he probably picked it up from working class people because, of course, he was hanging out there, you know, as theater folk do in the dodgier parts of town. And he was probably just picking up their vernacular and then taking credit for it.
Well, what's really going on? What's really going on is we're having a cultural revolution similar to Maoist China, right? So in Maoist China, Chairman Mao decided that the country was too decadent and that everyone had to put on a similar little military outfit, carry a little red book around, and praise Mao. So here in America, the social justice warriors believe that America is too decadent. There's too much wealth. And certainly stories like the Jeffrey Epstein story, I mean, that seems like a story out of the height of Roman decadency. So in response, there's this movement, which is inspired by the Cultural Revolution of Maoist China, to essentially eradicate all signs of decadence, to get rid of the rich class completely, and to make everyone equally miserable and poor. And that's what's going on now in America. And it's proceeding, you know, it's proceeding at a pretty, you know, at a clip. It's happening right now.
I do believe there's some sort of disintegration going on, and into that void of the disintegration are coming many things. And one of them is these, the sort of Maoists, the cancel culturists, and that's for sure. But there are all sorts of splinter groups as well. So I don't know, you know, there's many different things. I like to think that there could also be a renaissance because, you know, I think we've been going through a dark ages since 1971. And perhaps we could be, you know, there's a movement of enlightenment now. And I think you could say that, you could argue that with, you know, separatist movements like Bitcoin and removing yourself from the matrix. So there's never just one path, right? There's all sort of groups vying for power, whether it's politically, financially, economically, culturally.
Right, but it's all kind of merging together When you add all the colors together, it turns to black. So you take all these disparate groups and you mix them all up and it's all going to black. Or as the Rolling Stones sang, paint it black, right? And that was something of the 60s. Like, it's just when you try to pick the fly shit out of the pepper, you're not going to do well. That's the lesson of history. And everyone's looking around trying to say, that's not pepper, that's fly shit. And they spend all their days doing that. And what they're going to end up with is a Maoist, socialist, communist monoculture of putridness. But that's what America wants, so that's what America gets.
Well, we'll see. I think it's just a genuinely seismic generational shift. And we've talked about this, the fourth turning meets the Thucydides trap. I saw somebody... some historian tweeting about the US only passed China economically in 1880. Okay, that was the first year that it surpassed it economically. And now they're back vying together. But I mean, it's kind of interesting that when you think of the world history you learn in school, that you wouldn't know, right? You don't know until as an adult when you could you're self-reliant and you look for information on your own, that for the vast majority of modern human history, for the last 5,000, 6,000 years, it's been China that's led the world. Like, you would never know that, right? That they were the dominant power for many, 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 many centuries.
China and India shared power and ruling the world for thousands of years. And
well, definitely China was the number one economy.
The American dominance was a blip on the historical map. And so, yeah, we're back to more of the reversion to the mean. China more naturally should or has been ruling the world economically. America had like a bit of a blip, and now it's back to more of a Chinese ruled world. The U.S. strengths that would carry it to heights of economic powers above that of China rely on free markets and easy access to capital and freedom of speech and those types of things, the Bill of Rights that are included in the Constitution. So when America started to foreclose on the Bill of Rights and foreclose on the Constitution, it began the slippery slope back down to being a second-class country. So they don't respect freedom of speech in America, then there's no expectation that America will be able to compete with China.
Well, does China have freedom of speech?
No, but it's a world governed by authoritarians, and China is a great authoritarian, and America is a terrible authoritarian. So America as an authoritarian nation doesn't work. America only works as a nation governed by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. But if it tries to out-be authoritarian compared to China, and the COVID-19 crisis is a perfect example. China can handle the COVID-19 crisis because it's authoritarian. So it can lock down cities of millions for weeks on end, right? America can't do it because it's just not in their nature to do it. So it's going to suffer disproportionately from COVID-19. And that doesn't have to be that way, but sometimes countries make mistakes just like people make mistakes.
Well, but I mean, the thing is, China's never really done anything like the Renaissance or Enlightenment. So I wonder if they'll ever have that, like eventually, like.
But they don't care. In other words, the people who have enlightenments are people that care about having an enlightenment. And then they throw caution to the wind and they roll the dice on trying something different. And it works. And they become beacons of civilization and thought. And then it goes for a while and then it burns out. So we're at a time when the city on the hill that Ronald Reagan called America has burnt out. It's toast. So now we're going back, reverting to the mean of a more authoritarian, Asian-run world like it's been for thousands of years. And, again, I am a guy that reaped the total benefit of America's 20th century dominance. Born in 1960, rode the bull market for 45 years. Now I'm retiring, and I'm just going to live off the fat of what America did in the 20th century. I don't need to compete in the 21st century. for Americans that have to compete in the 21st century, I feel bad for them, but they were born at the wrong time. Ha ha.
Yeah, especially because the competition now is all about who can prove how much more of a victim they are than other people. So, in terms of me and Max, like Max is, as he said, a wasp, like born in the very right generation, at the very end of the boomer generation, in Westchester County, like the most privileged county of all of America, Protestant, Episcopalian. And then, half my family's Finnish and they're Lutherans, but, my dad's family is Irish Catholic. So Catholics were, my dad's family, they really see themselves as having been abused by the British Empire, obviously. And, there was a bizarre article recently about, these basically calling them white supremacists, these Irish Catholics who always talk about these ships that they were brought over. And they were like, it's true that they were brought over as indentured servants, but they weren't slaves, they were indentured servants. And yes, they did get killed by the people who they were indentured to. It was like really crazy. Like, well, it sounds pretty bad. And obviously, everybody grows up with their own oral culture and stories and history. And that is something I heard from my family long ago about how the Irish Catholics were abused and, for a long time. But, today, like there's this like ranking of all these, it's just so bizarre. And I'm not sure that it is like, lumping all white people together or all brown people or all black people or all, whatever color they are. It's so weird how just when gender has become one, and they have a list of 100 genders you can be in the United Kingdom, for example, and they're all one big blur. But there's becoming a sort of a race essentialism, like if you're white, it doesn't matter if you were like Irish Catholic and only got freedom in 17? Same with the Finns, by the way. They didn't get their independence until 1917 either. So like, why do we have this?
Well, being white is, why are ghosts white? Right? Because, you can't attack them, right? They're just fog. They're ghosts. So all these groups that are attacking whites, good luck, man. We're ghosts. We're not like a target we're not a very good target. In my opinion, it's a waste of time. Like, I think everyone attacking whites should realize that the whites have the same problem and that we're living under the yoke of central banking.
Yes.
Right? So, whites, blacks, browns, Asians, everybody, we're all poor, rich, even rich people. Like, it's still harsh to be living under the tyranny of a central bank. For example, Steve Mnuchin, who's the Treasury Secretary, he's saying like, well, the loans that we made for $150,000, we're going to forgive them and nobody has to pay them back. All right, so why did I pay taxes this year at all? Why am I paying taxes? Why am I paying even 10 cents worth of taxes? Why have I paid tens of millions of dollars of taxes over the years? If this guy is a former Wall Street banker, he's just going to give away all of my money, right? I didn't give my money to Steve Mnuchin so that then he can give it away to his friends. That's not why I pay taxes. I'm buying some military defense support. I'm buying roads. I'm buying something for my taxes. I'm not giving Steve my money for him to give away to his friends. That's not the way taxes work. That's not the way it works. So I'm not happy either. And I'm a white guy. Right. So, I'm not happy with my fellow white guy, Steve Mnuchin. He's a betrayal to me. Right. So what's he up to? That's what I want to know.
But let's go back to the fact that the system is disintegrating, because that's quite obvious. Like, when you look around throughout history, and this was during the Black Plague and the bubonic plague and the Dark Ages, there was suddenly nobody in charge. Right. the Roman Empire had disintegrated. The Vatican was all corrupt. It was like the swamp of its day. And we're kind of back in that sort of time. And you see, we've only had plunder, but the plunder and corruption grew and grew and grew because there were never any consequences. And by the time we got to today with the coronavirus and this global lockdown, is like, there's a kind of like vagueness and gooey quality to the fabric of society. Like there's nobody in charge. I guess, we're all supposed to be self-reliant, but now that's considered white supremacy to be self-reliant. But there's like nobody in charge. And like you just tune in to the news online and you find out that the solution to this whole situation is we're going to take your tax money and give it to random people, like for no reason. Like there's no plan. Nobody plans. And this is what, like when you're talking about this Thucydides trap and the rise of China, is one thing they always do is they have their 5-year plan, they have their 10-year plan, they have their 20-year plan. Like we can't even plan for next week. Like nobody knows. Like my plans certainly had been that I would have been able to go to a hair salon 4 months into this pandemic. I planned on people figuring this out, and instead it's going exponential here in North Carolina. The case numbers rise and rise and rise relentlessly. They keep getting worse, and that's because nobody has a plan and nobody cares about anything anymore.
Well, I think that's an excellent point. Really, is that at some point people will have this feeling that actually nobody's in charge.
Yeah.
And that's really scary. And so I think that that's a possibility, particularly as we go into this election, 2020 election. So Trump, he's had to deal with incredible shenanigans and a coup attempt, to be quite honest. And so the government appears to be somewhat dysfunctional, if not entirely dysfunctional. And then we head into this election, which could be hugely problematic. And on the other end of that election, we may be entering a period where there's really nobody in charge, and that point won't be just like a theory, like it won't be like a theoretical conceit, like, oh, you know what, nobody's in charge. It'll be actually like nobody's in charge for real, and that would be really, really frightening on many levels, and that's incredible that we may only be 6 to 9 months away from a United States without any governance in place at all.
So, it made me think when you discussed this, when you mentioned this, that of Stephen F. Cohen, who is that Russian historian who used to be on the news often during the Cold War, the first one. But he's not allowed on the news anymore because he speaks Russian and he knows Russian. So they don't want understanding. They just want propaganda and their side of the story told. So, but what he calls it is Shmuta. There's this, what drives the culture and the people in Russia, he said, is this fear of Shmuta. And that is the collapse of all institutions. And Russia has had that twice since 1917. The czarist government collapsed. Everything around you, the structure of the economy, the structure of the society, the organizing forces, the governance, everything disappeared overnight. It was gone. And then what happened after the 1917 revolution. And then in the collapse of communism, everything disappeared. And then you have those really high rate of suicide because everything disappeared. Like all the things that somebody had structured their life around, like it was gone. There were no bureaucrats, no officials, everybody disappeared. It was gone overnight. And then suddenly there were cowboys everywhere, just like plundering everything and taking everything. And you're like, who do you appeal to? Who do you say, stop this? It was at that time in the 90s, very, very, very dangerous. This is very dangerous time. And Matt Taibbi was there at that time, and Ben Aris was there for the Telegraph. And so you can read their stuff. We've interviewed them on Kaiser Report, but if you go to Twitter and follow their stuff, they had experience of that. But so that's a sort of the collapse of everything. Every single institution changes overnight almost. And so it kind of feels like that just because of that lethargy that you saw in I don't know what the end of the czarist times were, but certainly we could all remember, well, not all the Generation Z and millennials, but most of us, like us, me and Max, can remember the end of the Soviet Union and the lethargy and the old drunks that ran everything. And now we have old, demented people, and Lord knows what Trump is,
Right. If Biden becomes president, he'll be like Boris Yeltsin.
Yeah, well, Boris Yeltsin was like at the collapse of communism. So like just all that old thinking that was for the last 15, 20 years of communism. I mean, I guess Gorbachev was new thinking. He allowed perestroika to happen, but the old thinking, they couldn't advance, they couldn't progress, they couldn't get over, they couldn't persuade the population anymore. It just died of exhaustion, the people and the institutions. And it feels like we're on the verge of our institutions dying of exhaustion.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. Yeah, it does. Dmitry Orlov wrote that essay, The Collapse Gap, and he predicted this would happen and said the U.S. and Russia, Soviet Union would both collapse, but the U.S. would take 20 years longer than the Russia and Soviet Union to collapse. And he laid out the reasons why, and pretty much that's what's happening now. So his forecasting that he made 15, 16 years ago appears to be coming true now.
Somebody's asking, like, what are your thoughts on COVID-19? Is it all a hoax or whatever? And again, this is part of what I'm saying is this collapse of faith in any of our institutions, because the institutions themselves, like the population is only starting to lose faith. The institutions themselves lost faith in themselves a decade or two ago. Nobody there who works at those institutions, whether it's any of the bureaucracies of government or think tanks and stuff like that, they don't believe in anything. As you see, like they keep on flipping entirely their worldview with every new tweet outrage. So like there's nothing that fixes them. So here, one thing we always think of, and I believed it too, I have to say, is like when we were traveling around in January and February, and we saw this coronavirus coming, and we saw what China was doing of shutting down entire cities. And when China shut down Wuhan, like over 10 million people just locked down, and a major part of their industrial power base there, you're like, well, China is ultra capitalist, right? They're just like ultra mercantilist. So if they're shutting down, like it must be pretty bad, right? However, I did think, well, once all these US universities and scientists and Europeans and the Chinese facilities, everybody starts researching this virus, and we're going to have like some answers, right? It's going to be resolved by the summer. I thought for sure, like they're going to have some answers or treatments or a vaccine. And it just seems like almost as far now as it was back then. Like it seems like there's so little they yet know about it. So it just feels like we're actually not as advanced as we thought we were. The good times, since 1970, when we haven't had global war, we haven't had global depression because we keep on printing money no matter what, the markets keep on going up. Like there's a sense of I guess that's when the black swan disrupts everything, right?
Well, the precautionary principle.
Yes.
And it's very interesting the way it's used selectively, in America, for example. So leading up to the Iraq War I, there was 99% certainty that Saddam Hussein did not have weapons of mass destruction. But like that guy Wolfowitz, made the case that even if the chance of him having weapons of mass destruction is less than 1%, we must bomb Iraq and potentially kill 500,000 civilians, which is what they did. And certainly, so they went ahead and based on a 1% possibility of weapons of mass destruction, they went and committed genocide in Iraq for our American flag. That's another star on our flag, is the Iraq massacre. All right, so now go to climate change. 98.5% of all accredited scientists point to man-made climate change, and the earth is on fire and oceans are rising. But you still have that 1 or 2% of scientists that, and they're quite dubious in where they get their funding. It's not very clear why they're saying what they're saying, but they do make opposing views. So then Americans will say, well, if 2% of the 100% suggests that climate change and all the destruction that's going on is not really happening, then we must continue doing exactly what we're doing. Okay. So then it comes to COVID-19. So there's a 1 to 2% chance that it might not be like a biological agent that has the potential to wipe out millions and millions of people. But it's 99% true that at this point that it is a biological agent that can wipe out millions of people. And it's now overcrowding in hospitals in many states in America. So people can't get to the ICU unit. They can't get treated for cancer. They can't get treated at the hospitals. They're throwing them to refrigerated trucks, and they're taking the corpses down to mass graves, right? And people are like, what do you think about this hoax? So I think that, what my observation is that the human mind is not comfortable with science, because science is really very, very new. It's only about 300 years old. The human mind is hundreds of thousands of years, 1 million years old, and it operated for a million years on gossip and suggestive nature. There was no such thing as science. So very few humans can adapt to science. They don't look at science. They can't add 2 + 2. That's not a human instinct. If you tell the average human that, 2 + 2 is actually 5, most humans will take that as gospel and say, that's right, it is 5 because it's innuendo. And I believe innuendo and I reject science, right? And it gets so tiresome after a while. But in the end, it all works. You get a regression to the mean. So if there's going to be a mass wipeout, then that's what Gaia, the Mother Earth, wanted. So let's just let Gaia do her thing, man, and hope for the best.
I think that's the case too. I think, it's hubris to think we could defeat viruses, and everybody thinks they can, but they can't, because the virus has survived everything, including ice ages. Humans wouldn't be here if it weren't for viruses, because, they regenerated life from nothingness once, meteors or ice ages killed everything. But, going back to this whole Shmuta sense, is that I feel like, the US is the global empire, right? I know we pretend we're not. And that's part of the problem why America is having a mental breakdown right now, is that they refuse to even look at themselves. Most American elite are unwilling to know thyself. So they refuse to call us an empire. And yet we have hundreds of military bases around the world. We occupy Lord knows how many countries, but because we're not interested, our elite are not interested in building, that we only care about destroying. We have the monopoly on that. So we don't have to compete. We are allowed to destroy nations. Nobody else can. Our weapons, you can buy our weapons. Nobody else can sell their weapons. So, we have an absolute monopoly on that because we are the empire. So, I think this is part of the problem, is everybody does look to America to lead, right? Because you don't want to upset Caesar, right? Whatever you are, whether if you're in Cairo back in the day, or in any part of edge of empire in the Roman Empire, basically before you did anything major with your economy or your banking system or your agriculture, changed anything, you would make sure the Caesar is not going to get angry with you. Well, the same thing now is everybody's waiting for what America does, but most American elite don't care about building or taking care of anything. Look at every single country we bomb and then just leave into a chaotic mess. Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, they are total anarchy in the bad way. Like it's chaos and anarchy, slave markets, suicide bombings, like insanity. And that's like, compare us to the empire who came before us, which is the British Empire. And they built all these institutions and courts and railroads and all these things that still exist in many other former colonies.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's just well said. It's, but I think we're at the end though. So, and I think it's happening this year with this election, because it looks like we're going to head into a point when there is no effective leadership at all in Washington, in America, in the next 9 months.
Well, definitely we're going to see this acceleration that no matter who has wins the White House, Trump has already set us down a path that one cannot turn back from. And like I said, other nations look to what America does. And then what America does, they either move first before America can turn our huge ship around. Japan's government will start paying its companies to move factories out of China. Japan to pay at least $536 million for companies to leave China, not to come back to Japan, but to go to Vietnam or Cambodia or other parts of Southeast Asia for low-cost, manufacturing. But obviously, this is now unstoppable. This is part of that Thucydides trap. This is America refocusing their energy on China. And that's, by the way, even if you read Policy for a New American Century, which was written in the late 1990s by Donald Rumsfeld, Paul Wolfowitz, and those sort of guys, Jeb Bush. And what they were arguing is that Clinton needed to invade Iraq not because like what everybody says that, that America wanted to steal their oil. What they wanted to do and what they laid out is that in order for America to maintain its power, we've got to contain China. And in order to contain China, we must control Iraqi oil fields. Otherwise, China will. We don't want them to get access to that oil supply. And because every empire becomes an empire if you control the energy supply. So that's the only way to stop them from threatening us.
Well, to that extent, we were successful because the Iraqi oil is not controlled by China. It's just basically dysfunctional. So the point of going in there was to neuter that company and destroy it.
Well, a lot of Chinese oil companies are there, but I don't know what sort of percent. But basically, the U.S. yes can cut them off at any time. But they want, you have to pay Caesar, render unto Caesar what is his. And we want to I think they know that we could cut them off from the Iraqi oil at any time.
Right. It's a shame because the Americans, if left to their own devices, could compete against anybody in the world. But our politicians think that the Americans need the handicap of American going in and committing genocide in Iraq. That'll help Americans somehow against the threat of Chinese having some oil supplies in Iraq, which is very cynical of the American ruling class. They should just get out of the way and let Americans do what they do best, be very creative under the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. But we have this political class that thinks they know better than what's written in the Constitution. And as a result, now we're heading into the end game.
Well, I mean, I think I can't tell if they believe it or not, but I think certainly on the left side, the Democratic media, like, Rachel Maddow will cheer, like cry. She'll cry on television how we need to bomb Libya. We need to go in there because we need to save the people of Benghazi. And I think she maybe genuinely believed it, like with tears in her eyes and rolling down. I love the people of Benghazi. These are my people. And then like now there's slave markets there and chaos, and she never mentions it, never follows up on it. And so you wonder like who's controlling who or how that sort of, and it all comes down, I said, to them not knowing thyself. They cannot believe, they cannot enter their worldview that we are an empire, because empires are never kind. Like, is there any benevolent empire like who just became an empire because like, hey, shucks, we're here to help you? No, they're an empire because always They control energy, but they also control the seas and power. And they could freaking bomb you back to the Stone Ages. That's what Donald Rumsfeld was very open about. We can bomb anybody back to the Stone Ages, and anybody in the world will cheer us on. So if you fight back, you will be jeered by the world's economy. It doesn't matter how right you are, we're the Caesar.
Right, and America's superpower derives from the freedom of speech and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. So it's sad that the leaders feel that our superpower derives from being savagely genocidal maniacs. That's not where the superpower comes from. And I just feel like they blew it. I just feel like they blew it. I don't think there's any coming back from this. I just don't feel it. Maybe that'll change maybe, but at the moment, I don't feel it.
So this is going to be an interesting move to watch. Japan's government will start paying its companies to move factories out of China. I'm assuming the US will have to follow, and US companies will soon have to move out of China, but they won't obviously come back to America. That's not going to happen, because that's not the way. Well, two things. Our elites don't want workers to have too much income. They don't want you to have negotiating power or any power within this economy, because then you might have power to change laws and elect people that, are like AOC, too many AOCs that are not good for them. And also, obviously, if you're going to have the world's reserve currency of the US dollar, you need a massive trade deficit. So you can't have, you need the stuff to be made overseas in order to send dollars to China and other regions.
Speaking of interesting events, right? So I'm really watching closely the Three Gorges Dam possible rupture in China, because it would impact 400 million people. There's already been 38 million people evacuated. 400 million people would be impacted if the dam were to break. The rainstorms are continuing. It looks like it's very dodgy situation. It could bust at any time. And that right there could be an unbelievable event in terms of the global economy. It make COVID-19 not even appear on the scale as a significant event. It would 400 million people being blown apart by the Three Gorges Dam. That would be the defining moment of the 21st century.
Well, I think it would be the end of the Thucydides trap. It would extend American rule for sure, and not that necessarily American elite actually have any interest in ruling anymore. They think in order to rule the world, you have to know how to rule. So if they don't actually have much interest in ruling anymore, people don't have, in our economy, there's just too much hubris, and it's like third, fourth generation inheriting this amazing constitution and an amazing productive capacity and an amazing middle class, and they blew it all, and it's all gone, and nobody knows how to rebuild it. Maybe Elon Musk, who knows? Maybe he might save America, but right now they're not interested in ruling. But at the same time, China, if that Three Gorges Dam blows, it's like, talk about black swans. That's like that will just destroy their economy completely and their rule. I think the people who rule, the party that rules, could just be run out of power. Like they could be driven from power. So I don't. If that happens, like every single analysis of what might happen in China and Hong Kong and all that stuff and Taiwan, well, it just goes out the door, because it goes way back to like 1880. Yeah,
I think the only thing you could compare it to really would be like a meteor strike.
Yeah.
Right. So a meteor strike apparently wiped out dinosaurs, etc. And I think if that dam were to blow, it would be as impactful as a meteor strike, and could be an extinction event.
An extinction event for the Chinese Communist Party. Yes, I think so. And I don't know if the rains are supposed to stop. Like it just seems.
They say they're good to go for another 2 weeks. That's the current forecast that I read this morning. And they're already bursting around the dams. They've already evacuated 38 million people. And it's the biggest dam in the world, I believe. And as I said, it would impact 400 million people. So that's 30 or 35% of the population of China would be impacted by this. And then obviously that would mean the entire economy, it's blown out. It's like it's completely blown to shreds.
So, I mean, just that notion of the fact that not only did China like completely shut down cities as the virus spread to them, but here they could evacuate 38 million people in a week or two. They tested everybody in Wuhan, which I think is like a population of 11 or 12 million. They tested them all in 7 days. Like that sort of ability to mobilize and organize and just get things done. This is the part I was going to follow up on with this Japanese government moving factories out of China. Is one thing that was discussed, I think we talked about it on Kaiser Report like 5-7 years ago, is it like why Macintosh, why Apple makes all their computers and iPhones and stuff some of the computers are made in Texas, but everything is mostly made in China. And it's that organizing ability, the ability to put up a huge factory, like a gigafactory or a mega factory in like 2 weeks and get like, staff living on site and just a whole assembly line that you can't build here. There's just too many restrictions, for example, on building factories. So that sort of efficiency in China is not going to be available in Vietnam, Cambodia, or anywhere else. So this will drive costs up. This will start to cause even more inflation than we already have.
Yeah, like the iPhone 10, iPhone 11 could be trading on eBay for like $20,000 a piece. They would be incredibly collectible because all the iPhone manufacturing would be completely eviscerated. So, inflation would go up and supply lines would be crushed. And so the inflation that was all in the stock market would shift from the stock market to the real economy. So the markets would go down 60, 70%, but the price of food and energy would go up 100, 200, 300%. And so you could see that happening as a result of this Chinese dam breaking.
Yeah. Well, plus on top of that, like if we have to move all of this stuff out, American Factory, that's the documentary to go watch. It's stunning. Obama was executive producer of it, but it shows this factory somewhere maybe in Ohio or somewhere like that, where these Chinese took over. It had been like some American factory that shipped their jobs overseas and abandoned America. So it got taken over by these Chinese who brought in some Chinese workers, and they also had a factory in China to compare it to. And that's what I'm talking about. The inflation is like the lethargy involved in the American worker versus the Chinese workforce was night and day. I mean, it was like there was no comparison. That clearly the Chinese workers were way, way better and harder working than the American workers. Like you can't deny that. It was there on the screen. And so if we get rid of that, like the costs are obviously going to rise across the board on a lot of things.
Yeah, completely. So it goes back to what I call and what we've been calling neo-feudalism, where you just have the vast majority of people live as peasants, essentially sustenance living, hand-to-mouth living, and the cost of everything else is just absolutely unobtainable. You won't be able to fly anymore. It'll be $100,000 a flight. You won't be able to have access to hardly anything that you have now because it totally went back to medieval feudal times.
Somebody earlier was like mentioning that Americans don't understand Marxism, but you know what? If you tune into Kaiser Report and watch our interviews with Michael Hudson, who is literally the smartest person I believe we've ever met, like about economics. Like he knows everything about every single economic theory on earth. And where they actually work in practice and where they don't, what they say in theory and what happens in reality, blah, blah, blah. But he was actually, he's quite interesting because he is the godson of Leon Trotsky. So because Hudson's father was a famous Union leader, and Trotsky had stayed with them, and I believe it was in Chicago. And so he was Trotsky's godson. Trotsky was assassinated when Michael Hudson was like 1 or 2, and so Michael Hudson had bodyguards until he was about 16 because they thought he might be targeted by Stalin as well. But so he knows Marxism, and we've talked to him about those sort of things. He's not a Marxist, but he definitely understands it quite well.
Well, Marxism is a critique of capitalism. It's not a standalone system to run a government. It's like,
Sure.
Like Roger Ebert is a critic of films.
Yeah.
Well, how many films has Roger Ebert made? None. Right? So Marx was a good critic of capitalism, worth reading, but it's not a substitute system. It's not like he created a substitute system that you replace capitalism with something called Marxism, just like you would not replace a Roger Ebert film review for a film, right? So, I mean, I think that's where people misunderstand Marxism.
Huh, that's interesting to say.
Yeah.
Is he on Twitter? No, Michael Hudson's not on Twitter. But I wish he were, because he would be quite pithy on Twitter. He would be. What do you think about the whole Twitter hacked by 3 teenagers?
Well, the vulnerability was pretty basic, as I understand it. They left a password on a Slack group or something like that.
Pinned to the top.
Right. So that was really sloppy security. And the damage that could have been done is pretty significant. The damage that resulted was not too bad, really. But anything that can get hacked will get hacked, right? That's something that Elizabeth Stark says all the time. Anything that can get hacked will get hacked. And so when we as a nation give our medical records and our social security records and our personal records over to these private corporations and to government systems even, they're going to get hacked. All that stuff will get hacked one day or another. It will get hacked. And that causes a lot of damage, and there's no need for it. You don't need the surveillance state. Privacy is there because nobody is more incentivized to safeguard important data than you. That's what privacy is all about. You don't want to outsource keeping the nation's data, which is the nation's wealth. And wealth of nations in America and the world today is the collective data of the individuals. You don't want to put that wealth into the hands of a third party that's going to get hacked. That's privacy means I'm willing to help America be valuable by keeping my data private. That's the best thing you can do as an American to protect your privacy. That's why we have laws against unreasonable search and seizure, because you would undermine the value of the wealth of the nation by putting the data into a domain, and then it gets hacked, and then you lose the value. This point is not well understood by the government that allows corporations to come into the mix and make the valuable data of the nation vulnerable to these types of attacks. And it's going to get worse because there's nobody in leadership who can express the value of privacy as I've just stated it.
Wow. Yeah. What do you think of Elon Musk? His Twitter handle was hacked for a bit, but when he's come back on and he's been tweeting about Dogecoin, somebody's asking about that.
Right. Well, Dogecoin is purely a meme coin. It was created as a meme, and it's probably the most successful crypto meme coin. Its only purpose, its stated purpose, is to be for the lulz. It doesn't pretend to be anything other than that. It never has. And so Elon Musk is somebody whose company, Tesla, was almost worth $300 billion a week ago. And 290 or 200, let's say 260 billion of that 300 billion valuation is of a meme. So I think he understands, like, if Doge can be worth, what's the market cap of Doge? Is something in the order of
well, I'm going to look it up.
it's over $1 billion.
Coin market cap And I'm going to check it out there. It was created by Jackson Palmer, right? Isn't that the guy's
Yeah,
name?
Jackson Palmer. He never benefited from it, even though
Oh,
he
no.
could have been a billionaire easily.
Doge is 426 million.
Right,
market cap.
$400 million market cap, which is based entirely on a joke, right? Which is the most expensive joke I've ever seen. It's a very expensive joke. And then Tesla is similar. It's a meme. It's mostly the value of the Tesla stock is driven by the meme of Tesla and Elon Musk. There's no enterprise value. There's no earnings really potential yet that we see. There's no breakup value. None of that applies. It's not fundamentally worth anywhere, not even a tenth of that amount yet. I mean, maybe someday it will be. But most of it's driven by memes. So Elon Musk, he knows he's weighing memes for memes, right? He's saying, look, if you don't think, if Tesla's worth 300 billion because Doge is worth 400 million. And he understands the value of memes. And if he can sell stock in Tesla now, then he has monetized the meme to build up his working capital, which is a great way to do working capital. So it's like Warren Buffett has an insurance company and he takes insurance premiums and he uses them to build up Berkshire Hathaway to being worth a lot of money based on redeploying the insurance premiums. An insurance business is a stupid, guaranteed income business. And so Elon Musk is saying, look, the meme business is really the 21st century industry that you need to be proficient in. And I can convert the meme value of Tesla stock into dollars, which I can then use as working capital to go build cars and build rockets and do other stuff. And maybe someday it'll genuinely, on a fundamental basis, be worth $300 billion, maybe in 10, 15, or 20 years. At the moment, it's just a meme trading. Now, on the other side of this is, of course, the problem you have with these markets, and that is you do get the occasional 60, 70, 80, or in the case of the NASDAQ in 2001, the 85%, move down. People forget that the NASDAQ dropped 85% after the dot-com crash. It lost $5 trillion. It dropped 85%. Amazon was worth like $5. Apple stock was worth like $10. I mean, these things go the other way. The meme gets nasty sometimes.
So there is also, speaking of Elon Musk and memes, because remember we discussed a few weeks ago here on Lockdown with the Keisers, we discussed Elon Musk on Joe Rogan, and he mentioned to Joe Rogan, which Joe Rogan missed, but he said that Elon Musk said that he's not afraid of AI. The only thing he's afraid of is if AI starts creating its own memes and weaponizes memes. So obviously Elon Musk is talking about that ability for memes to just like get inside your brain and alter your consciousness with one simple viewing of it. And he understands that power. Now, on top of that, so here's an AI story that just happened yesterday and everybody's talking about it. I haven't researched it yet because, but the people who seem alarmed by it seem really alarmed by it. And that is this GPT-3, an AI, artificial intelligence program that was, it was released into open source. I guess Elon Musk was involved, Peter Thiel. And so it's spooky in mimicking human intelligence. It's basically wrote an article. I think I sent you the article, and it was actually written by an AI who mimicked this journalist voice, and it did a good job sounding like a human.
Right. Well, the discovery of memes and the effect on the mind, it goes back to Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, 19th century doctors and professors who discovered the subconscious and the unconscious mind. Until that time, we had myths and we had legends and we had hints at the existence of a subconscious mind, but they actually scientifically, methodically proved the existence of the subconscious and the unconscious mind. And that's the beginning of the memes as we understand it, because you can meme or an image or can bypass your conscious mind and go directly into your unconscious mind. And this is how hypnotism works, for example. This is how a lot of propaganda works. This is how advertising works. And so now we're at a point, though, where you've got billions of people hooked up to the internet simultaneously. So 4chan can come up with a meme like Pepe the Frog, And suddenly it's being mouthed by Hillary Clinton during the 2016 presidential election. And suddenly it's impacting the results. So that's a weaponized meme because of the connectivity of the internet. You have a co-op of meme warriors, with like 4chan or 8chan. That's just a collective of people like really interested in coming up with how, twisting language and images and reshaping and collaging and without any boundaries, right? They have no intellectual boundaries. They're simply completely free to roam anything that comes into their minds. And so the results can be very impactful. But so I think that it's true that AI is a threat because for AI to grow, it needs energy. And so what I see shaping up here in a couple of years is going to be a fight between AI and Bitcoin, because both of these and Bitcoin is fighting for humanity, and AI is fighting for the robots, essentially anti-human. They're not pro-human in any way. And they're both fighting for energy. So to the extent that Bitcoin uses up a lot of energy and can grab most of the Earth's energy that's here available on planet Earth, then we can keep AI at bay. If Bitcoin fails in its mission to save humanity, which is the primary mission of Bitcoin, it's nothing to do with price, nothing to do with economics, nothing to do with anything except saving humans. That's why it would appear. That's why it was sent here. If it fails to defeat AI in the race for energy, then we'll have a completely robotic future, and our species, as we know it, will become extinct.
Yeah. So in the last few moments here, I do want to say I think AI has something to do with this sudden escalation in the conflict, the building conflict with China. I think much of the news probably focuses on Russia, but I think there's something genuinely happening with China. And I think they've had massive discoveries and advancement. I think they're very, very advanced in AI. And I think it was our own government, our own Department of Defense who said, whoever controlled 5G and AI, they'll control the world. So something happened connected to 5G that it dawned on the Department of Defense. Remember, I said we only have a Department of Defense in the military industrial complex. We destroy, we don't build. So they recognize something as a huge threat. In the last year, you saw it switch overnight, that there was something happened. And I think that AI is the root cause of it. So the way the US works, the way America works is more open source, right? China's very closed with their technology and their know-how. So it makes sense that Peter Thiel, who obviously works with the CIA, with Palantir and stuff, and Elon Musk, who knows who he works for with SpaceX, those launches he did, one that blew up, it was a payload by an unnamed agency. So, they're releasing this in open source, and obviously people contribute to it and make it better. So I think this is an AI battle going on between the US and China. Maybe they haven't told people fully, in the US, that this is what they're doing, but they're participating in part of that meme war, AI war happening.
Right. Well, you mentioned China and their 5-year plans.
Yeah.
So the last time they got together and they put together a 5-year plan, they were very open in the fact that they were using AI to guide them in creating our 5-year plan. So they've already brought that AI into their policy mix.
Yeah. Well, and I want to say we're going to be starting up a new podcast instead of this. We're going to be doing called Orange Pill Podcast. We did succeed in orange pilling somebody this week. We're very happy that we did that. In terms of buying Bitcoin, we're orange pilling some people, and that's always a good thing. And because what comes after the red pill?
Right, exactly. That's a question that needs to be answered now, because everyone has either been red pilled or not. But for those who have been red pilled, what comes after that?
Yeah, because if you're red pilled, you're suddenly seeing the world as it is. Okay, you see the world as it is. Now what? Well, you build your own system, right? You build self-reliance. And I don't think it's an accident that they're suddenly telling you that self-reliance is an evil. So we're going to start an orange pill podcast about this post red pilled world. And including Bitcoin, monetary policy, AI, travel to Mars.
We're traveling to Mars? That's cool. I'm looking forward to that.
And I also want to point out, of course, that, if you're buying Bitcoin, if you're just getting orange pilled, if you're just coming on board, anybody who's been in Bitcoin for a few years, you know how to acquire your Bitcoin. But we are affiliated now with swanbitcoin.com because
That's right.
it's a secure way to buy Bitcoin.
Keep talking. Keep going. Keep going.
He's I don't know what he's doing. I think he's getting a flamingo, which kind of looks like a swan.
Yeah, I
right?
thought like this kind of looks like a swan, right? It's a flamingo, but it could be a swan. Like, does that look more like a swan?
Yeah, that does.
This is not the official logo of Swan Bitcoin.
No, but it's close enough,
This
right?
is like a Rorschach test. What do you see here? I see a man with a cane standing on a pyramid. No.
Really? I
what do you
saw
see
somebody
here?
hanging, like a hangman.
I see Lake Erie pouring into the canals of Venice. No.
Wow, that's pretty good.
This looks like a flamingo, right? No.
So dollar cost averaging, because, who knows if Bitcoin might fall again or rise again. You don't want to chase it. You go to swanbitcoin.com/max and you get $10 worth of Bitcoin for free there. And you set up a program to buy automatically. So your human emotion is removed from the situation, and you dollar cost average into Bitcoin. You buy $10 worth a week, or every month. You can buy it on daily, monthly, weekly, and importantly, you can withdraw. You can auto withdraw to a Bitcoin wallet, which we're now recommending. Casa. Keys.casa.
Keys.casa.
Oh my God.
Keys. This is the music for the commercial. La la la. La Swan. Bitcoin. Well, keep going with the text, man. I'm doing the music.
Well, I want to hear the music. Okay.
Well, you have to deliver the text. I'm responsible for the music.
Right. So, yeah, that's the thing. We're going to be talking about bigger, broader things. We're going to talk about broads all over the place, broad topics, and macro, big picture, post fiat world. I think we're entering either a dark ages or emerging from one. It's a new renaissance. It's a Renaissance show talking about all the ideas that are now emerging, and how to become free from the system, or what
Where's
to do.
that private key? I thought I lost it. Yeah, I put 100 Bitcoin on this thing.
Oh yeah, I forgot this. You can turn on the lights on that.
Ah, well, that's nice. It's always great when you find a private key that you thought you lost. Isn't that great?
Well, and that's the point, is if you do lose your private keys, you lose your Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But if you sign up for Casa at keys.casa,
it never happens.
That never happens to you.
No.
It removes, just like I said, like swanbitcoin.com/max, the dollar cost averaging removes your human emotion and your fear, your greed, all that stuff. It removes it from the equation. And then Casa, keys.casa. I mean, I'm only realizing our investment thesis now is that Casa is removing your stupidity and your lethargy.
You need a lobotomy.
Yeah.
In order to be a successful hodler, you need a lobotomy. Casa helps you lobotomize yourself. So does Swan Bitcoin. So you do not make the same stupid newbie mistakes over and over again. Okay, how about that for an advertisement? Swan.
Oh my God. Let's see if people like your singing. Does anybody like Max's singing?
Swan. Yeah, of course they do. They're tasteful, cultural, vultural, looking at things. They're like, hey.
So a lot of people want a lobotomy now.
Yeah,
you should start offering that.
Lobotomies are us. Is a new business idea that I'm going to develop and take public soon at a full $100 billion valuation. It's home lobotomy kit, and it's similar to getting your home DNA collection or home tonsil removal. It's called home lobotomy.
Home tonsils removal?
Yeah, that's home tonsil removal. It's another business of mine. It's great. Comes with a hammer, chisel, all the wire you need.
Did you ever have your tonsils removed?
No.
They don't really do that anymore, but they used to back in the old days. When we were children.
Yeah, I remember as a kid, that was a big thing. And then
I wanted mine out because
you get ice cream.
Because
you get ice cream.
Because my cousin had hers out, and I was envious. So I wanted.
Let's play the Shakespeare Oracle game.
No. We're gonna
to go?
I think we have to go because people are just like tired. It's Sunday and
they're tired. Of course, they're tired.
They want to go to Swan Bitcoin and go buy some Bitcoin, and then they would move it to Casa Keys.
Do that. That's what you need to do because it's like getting a lobotomy, but in a good way. It's a good lobotomy. How you like that for an ad? All right.